I often like to talk about our stuff as employees. With an employee, you pay them to do a job, and in turn, that job should benefit your company in an equal or ideally greater rate than you are paying them. Your stuff is like that. All of our stuff requires our time and attention to manage, care, and inventory. Dishes need to be washed, furniture needs to be cleaned, sheets need to be laundered, books need to be read, craft supplies need to be organized. If the time you're taking to manage, care, and inventory for these things is not equal to the value you get from these products, it might be a sign that it's time to fire them, right? You don't really need them. Now, I think one of my biggest pet peeves is time wasting. So I'm always looking at simple ways to make my life easier, more streamlined, and to make certain processes faster or easier. And I think that's part of why I tend to gravitate towards minimalism, even though I've told you guys a million times that I'm definitely not a minimalist. I love the idea of less because less stuff means less time. And so today I'm sharing the top 10 things I stopped buying because ultimately they just took too much of my time. Okay, first up are throw rugs. Now, I haven't completely gotten rid of throw rugs, but I've gotten rid of a lot of the ones that were sort of smaller and they're mainly for decorative purposes. I'm talking about ones maybe hallway runners or the ones that we keep in kitchens, because what I have found is having throw rugs in a lot of these locations just made it harder to keep the floors clean. And certainly this might not be something that I will be adopting forever and forever in my life, but I currently have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, so high traffic areas like kitchens specifically, or places where my kids are eating a lot, it just became more of a hassle to have these throw rugs laying around and made it harder to keep the space tidy. Number 2 is excess home decor, specifically the things that sit out on flat surfaces. These typically are the items that we just we don't necessarily go out looking for them. Like, we're not out at the store and we're like, I really need something cute to put on my coffee table or whatever, but it's the things that catch our attention when we're in the stores or we see it and we end up bringing it home. Ultimately, I found that a lot of these things are just sort of dust collectors. They just sort of sit out on flat surfaces. They just require that we have to clean them, we have to move them around. I find that often they make my space look a little bit more like visually cluttered than I really want them to. Going back to that employee reference, they're basically providing like no real value, but they're taking my time to have to clean them and like rearrange them and move them every time I'm trying to use that flat surface. So I have really, as cute as they are, because there are so many cute, adorable little things to put on our mantles and our coffee tables and our bookshelves, I really have stopped pretty much buying almost all of them because I find that they just really take more of my time than the value that they're providing me. Number 3 is excess toys. Specifically buying excess toys because I think it will keep my kids entertained. And I think this is something that a lot of parents fall into, this trap, right? Like, we sometimes just want 10 minutes to drink our coffee in peace, or we want something that they're going to use for independent play when we pick them up from school so that we can make dinner. So we're constantly getting sort of more things that we think are going to keep their interest or keep them entertained. But I've really learned through motherhood and from my experience, I did go to school for early childhood, I worked in preschool, I taught for 3 years, that more toys almost never connects directly to more play. We think more toys means more play, but that's almost never the case. Typically, having more toys in a space actually just tends to lead to less engaged play because there is so much out for the child that they don't always even know exactly where to start. I mean, think about it for yourself, right? You're trying to decide what you're gonna have for dinner. You're gonna get takeout with your husband and you're like, I don't know, what do you want? He's like, I don't know, what do you want? Because there's just too many choices. One thing that my husband and I always do is like, I'll pick my top 2 and then he'll pick from there or whatever, because it just immediately narrows it down and makes it a lot easier. And doing that for our kids' toys, I find, really helps. Not to mention, kid toys can be one of the hardest things to manage, to inventory, to keep tidy. There are so many tiny pieces and the pieces get lost and then your kid carries one piece from one room to the other room. It is something that is extremely time consuming to manage and keep organized. And so I really look at all of my kids' toys as, is the value that we're getting out of this worth it? We have a set of these like magnetic car tracks that my kids are obsessed with. They will play with it for a straight hour. It takes a little bit of time to clean up. They're a little bit bulky, but it is well worth that because my kids play with it all of the time. As opposed to maybe we have a set of like balance blocks or some type of block set that they always just dump the container over. They only play with it for 5 or 6 minutes, and then it's just left there to get picked up over and over and over again. It's not really worth keeping this toy that's consistently only giving me 5 minutes of play. Next up is too much overstock food. I shared in a video recently about how we cut our grocery budget down, and one of the biggest things was there suddenly wasn't this excess money in our budget for like extra food. We were suddenly buying like just what we needed for our breakfast, our lunch, and our dinners, and we weren't buying these like the extra snacks, and maybe we'll want this for a dessert, and I'll get this and keep it in the freezer just in case, and I'll get this to keep in the pantry for if we want to do a snack board at some point. We suddenly didn't have all of that excess. It was just the food that we needed for the meals that we were cooking. And at first it was sort of like this feeling of opening our fridge and being like, wait, there's not enough food here. But what we ultimately realized was there was always enough food because we had a plan going into what we were doing. We knew what we were buying for that week. And suddenly it actually became a lot easier because, again, going back to the same idea, like with toys, there were less choices, so it just made it really easy. You know, you could eat A, B, or C. I wasn't digging through a pantry of excess stuff or digging through a fridge of excess stuff. I wasn't forgetting about something in the back of my fridge for it to only go bad and then have to throw it out. I didn't end up with surplus snacks in the pantry that never ever got eaten, or bags that were half eaten and then went stale and I had to throw out. And it's definitely saved a lot of money because I'm not throwing out food that we're not eating, but it's also just saved me a lot of time because it's a lot easier to just manage and maintain the food in our space. Going off the point of excess food, today's video is sponsored by HelloFresh. HelloFresh delivers fresh ingredients with easy recipes right to your door, taking the hassle out of dinner time and helping me avoid those extra trips to the grocery store. When trying out new recipes, sometimes we end up buying like an entire bottle or a bag of something to use only part of it, and then the rest of it just sits in our pantry indefinitely. I love that HelloFresh offers 40 weekly recipes to choose from, so I can avoid recipe rut without overloading my pantry with items I might not use up or use again. And HelloFresh's latest line is called Fast and Fresh, which means delicious, filling meals that are ready in only 15 to 20 minutes, which is amazing for those busy days. Also, a lot of you know that I'm going to be welcoming baby 3 in just a few short weeks, and I love HelloFresh for newborn life because it takes all the meal planning, prep, and grocery buying off of my plate.
To try it out for yourself, go to HelloFresh.com and use my code ButtersCoffee65 for 65% off plus free shipping.
Next up is throw pillows. Now, I haven't gotten rid of all of the throw pillows in my house, but there's something about throw pillows that we just kind of accumulate them. We end up with more and more. We have them for different seasons and for different holidays, and then we have a set for the bed, and then there's one for the sofa. And I find, especially with smaller children, they just kind of like end up on the floor. I felt like I was constantly picking up throw pillows in my life, constantly. And for what? Because they kind of looked nice sitting on the sofa. Like when I actually sat down on the sofa, we would like kick the throw pillow to the side so we could sit there. So there was like such a small amount of value to these throw pillows that I really just narrowed it down. Next up is books. Now I'll be honest, when I read, especially certain kinds of books, I like to have the actual book. I don't know what it is. I like reading from the paper, but I found that every time there was like a new book that I really wanted to read or I wanted to try, I was buying these books and I was ending up with excess books that I couldn't get to. And then once I was done with books, I would often keep them even though I didn't really need them anymore. So I've become a lot more intentional about that. I don't buy a book until I'm absolutely ready to read it right this moment. And I've gotten a lot better about getting some of my books on options like Kindles as well as audiobooks, so I don't have to deal with managing the actual book once I'm done reading it, because there are very few books that we actually need to keep around after we have read them. Okay, next up is beauty supplies. Not that I have stopped buying all beauty supplies, but I've gotten a lot more intentional about not buying excess and really streamlining my sort of like beauty, skincare, hair care, makeup routines in general. I used to be somebody who always just like kind of had a surplus of makeup lying around. I would always have 8 million different nail polish colors. Why did I need 6 different kinds of blush and 4 different eyeshadow palettes and 20 million different lipstick colors? I didn't, but they slowly accumulate over time and I always just had way more than I needed. I really have gotten good about paring it back to like, okay, do I have a moisturizer? I need 1 moisturizer. Do I have a dry shampoo? I need 1 dry shampoo. When I'm looking at my makeup in my makeup bag, like I need a mascara, I need a blush palette, I need a eyeshadow palette. I find especially bathrooms are one of those places that product buildup just happens so easily. We end up with a second hairspray before we have finished a hairspray, or we buy a hair mask before we're done with the other one. And so I've really sort of streamlined that back and gotten really good about not buying just because it's the newest and the greatest and this beauty product claims it's going to make me look beautiful and wonderful and fresh and young and youthful and whatever, and really just focusing on streamlining, having really just one of each, because that's all that I really need. All right, our final 3 are specifically sort of to the wardrobe category, but the first one is buying clothing for a single event. Buying an outfit, especially for a girls' night out, or buying a dress specifically to go to an event, to go to a wedding. I've really tried to pare back on buying an outfit for an occasion. And if I really have to, like I have to buy something, I'm super specific about buying something that is versatile, that can be used again and again and again. I'm not buying this one dress that's like amazing and wonderful and great, but like I can literally wear it this one time and then never wear it again, or probably won't have a chance to wear it again for like 5 years. Because closets are one of those places that tend to get cluttered really easily. And it's one of those places that we tend to end up with a lot of excess. It makes getting dressed in the morning longer. And so I find that keeping my wardrobe as minimal as possible just makes my life a lot easier, specifically just day-to-day life of getting dressed. I want my wardrobe to be something I can open, I grab it, something I can wear today, and I'm good to go. And a lot of these pieces that we're buying specifically for these single events are not something that we're really gonna wear on a day-to-day basis. Which brings me into the second item, which is buying clothing items that are high maintenance. These are clothing items that have to be washed a special way, or dry cleaned a special way, or like can only be hung up, or can only be worn a single way with a single kind of shoe, or you can only wear that kind of shirt with that kind of pant. These sort of high maintenance pieces that aren't easy grab and go. And sure, some of this may just be where I am in my life. I'm not taking 45 minutes to curate the perfect outfit every single day. Maybe that's where you are in your life, and that's fine. You don't have to worry about this one. But I don't want clothing that's gonna take extra time for me to manage, to clean, to style, to figure out how to wear. I just want easy stuff. And finally, that brings me into having accessories for like literally every occasion. So I'm talking about things like jewelry, shoes. Shoes I feel like are a really big one, especially as women. We can feel like we need every kind of shoe because we may encounter some outfit somewhere where we need that kind of shoe, and so it can be really hard to kind of narrow it down. But I find very often we can look at our shoes, we can usually pretty quickly identify the ones that we have not been wearing, that we do not gravitate to, or we can identify the ones that we just keep wearing over and over and over again. We can usually minimize this down. Shoes were a big one for me because I did feel like I needed to have excess shoes so that I could complete every kind of outfit, but shoes are big and they are bulky and they are hard to manage and they are hard to organize, and it was constantly bogging down my space. And ultimately that just meant that when it was time to wear said shoe that I thought that I needed, I didn't even really know where it was. I think I literally maybe bought 1 pair of new shoes in the entire last year. I did. I only bought 1 pair of shoes in the last calendar year. And you wanna know what? I've always got shoes to wear, and there's always something on my feet for every outfit, so it's really not an issue. And I feel like the same goes with jewelry. Lots of times we hang on to something and we're like, oh, this one necklace might be really great for this like one outfit that I might wear. And jewelry's not as crazy, you could probably just tuck it away. But ultimately, we do tend to end up usually with a lot more jewelry than we're actually actively switching out and wearing on an average basis. Or at least I know I was. Again, you may be somebody who is very into accessorizing, and that is good. Good for you. I love it. I love that for you. It wasn't for me. I just wasn't somebody that would pick out a pair of earrings for every outfit. So I ultimately realized I could let a lot of them go. All right, my friends, that does it. My top 10 things that I have stopped buying simply to help me save time, but ultimately obviously have also helped me save quite a bit of money as well. Like I mentioned in this video, not all of these things are things for you. Maybe some of these things are things that you should keep buying because it makes sense for your life, but these are the things that I have found have really saved me a lot of time not having them around at the season of life that I am in. As always, thank you so much for stopping by and watching. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Remember to be kind to yourself and others, and I will see you all in my next video.